Okay, Andy.
All right.
This is a good one.
Oh, yeah, this is a great one.
On site.
Welcome to Day in Miami, on site from River Landing in the state attorney's office.
Okay.
We have Katherine Fernandez Rundle,
Beautiful.
the state attorney for Miami-Dade County. I have to ask, there's a lot of words in your name. Can we call you Kathy during the podcast?
Please do. I've been called a lot worse and a lot better. So.
Manny's been a little worried about,
because I said,
which one.
How do we want to, address her? Do we, Madam State Attorney?
Kathy's perfect.
That's...
The things I get called, maybe you wouldn't be surprised.
Well, we could say it comes with the territory. No? A lot of people, So, Andy, tell us, what are we excited about having Kathy on the podcast today?
Well, I think a lot of people know that Kathy is our state attorney in charge of our criminal prosecution system, and there are very high-profile cases that come out in the paper or get sensationalized on the news, but we don't really know much about the office, how it works, what they're really doing, the initiatives that the office is undertaking both locally and in the state of Florida.
Yeah,
and you don't hear a lot about how tough it is on the attorneys on a state pay scale to live and work here in Miami-Dade County. And I think those should be some of the topics that we touch on today.
Absolutely.
Well, Kathy, welcome. Welcome to A Day in Miami, and thank you for doing this. We know how busy you are, and we really welcome the fact, and before we started, recording, we were talking about the sense of how important it is for people to know. Sometimes the idea of us doing this podcast was we want the people from Miami and our viewers to know not only our politicians and everything, but to know them in an easy way, not only in the fact of just there's a case going on and you're being interviewed, but everybody just wants to know, talk to us about Kathy. Kathy Fernandez Rundle, where she grew up, her background, why'd you pick this? Was this your calling?
First of all, Manny, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
It really is. And we were talking before we started this podcast that, we have so many interrelationships. And so I've admired you for many years, and certainly admired Maurice.
Please do not cut that. Let's keep that one.
You didn't let me finish the sentence, though. Maurice Ferrer is probably one of the greatest leaders the city and county has ever had. And the fact that you worked so many years with him says a lot about you, because he chose you to be by his side in making those tough decisions. And then I have to tell you, so Andy Hellinger, well, look where we are in this glorious space, right? Yes. River Landing, literally on the river. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell a quick little story, if I may, because he's a tough negotiator. I mean, we're here laughing and having fun, right? But let me tell you that he wasn't an easy person to deal with. In the end, he was right and he was great, but he makes you work for it. But I do have a great story for you, Andy.
Well, we know that, by the way.
I think that's a thank you.
We work for him, too, by the way.
That's a compliment. That's a compliment. I mean, so when I first met him, this was all the Mahi Shrine parking lot.
Yep.
And this is where the jurors would park, and some of our overflow, the people in our office, because for those of don't know, we're right across the street from here. So, but anyway, this was just parking lot. And then he took it over. It failed a couple of times with other potential developers. And then he came along and he's knocking on our door. And he was very diligent and persistent. And then I remember when he showed us the plans. I said, wow, really? And he goes, yes. So I went to my veteran staff. And I'm going to talk about the staff in a minute. But you're going to love this story, because what happened 10 years ago, when this was sort of just a vision and on paper a drawing, I went to my veteran staff, the ones that have been here for years and have worked their way up, and they've been living in a dingy building over there, calling it their office for years. I went to them and said, listen, it's going to be this new space, and it's going to be on the river. And so I'm giving you the option to move first. Oh, no. We're not moving. Give it to the new kids. Okay. We do that. 10 years later, they come over here and go, how come you didn't ask us if we wanted?
What happened here? Now they want to be here.
Now they want to be here. So this is a real testament to you that everybody loves
I have a little
space.
bit more space. I'm happy to talk to you. now I'm happy to talk to you.
Now don't tell anybody.
Well, I think we're a little bit out of that one.
Negotiate again on
air?
live.
This
We'd have to do it live.
This has
we
become
can't do
like
it taped.
something now accustomed for us. Last time we were in the Coconut Grove Art Festival, we were negotiating an event over here with Swim Week. So I mean, I think this is something new,
Yeah.
But you wanted to, I love the fact.
I want to say that
Go
the
ahead.
fact that this is a beautiful office
Yes.
that you built out here, and the fact that I think it's admirable that you didn't move here, right? You could have had the nicest office of an administrator in Miami-Dade County, and you didn't move here. And I think that says a lot of what the staff means to you.
Thank you. They mean everything to me. And sometimes people will say, why do you do what you do? Because for those that see part of it, it just looks like it's so mean and
Right.
heavy-handed, and it's nasty, and it's the inhumanities and humanity that we deal with as an office. And I say it's two things, really. One, it's the people I work with. I mean, they just work so hard. They're so devoted. They really have servants' hearts. They give of themselves. They sacrifice, and their families sacrifice. Because we have a lot of young new lawyers that have been, in school for 7 or 8, 27 years, right, or since they're 5. And then they want to get married and start a family, and they can't. And then the second is the victims. That you look at the victim population, what it's like if you've been a victim of a serious crime, a violent crime. Your life is really forever altered, some more than others, depending on the gravity of the crime and the injury. But I watch them; they get so courageous to go through that process, to be cross-examined, to go in front of the world in a courtroom that's very formal and cold and tell your story. And sometimes you have to tell your story over and over and over again. So I watch them and their courage, and that just inspires me. And then last but not least, look at this community.
Yes, it is.
This community gave me and my family so much. And I have the wherewithal, and my parents sort of taught me that if you can do public service, you should do public service. And so I feel really blessed.
Well, and that's, I wanted to elaborate on that. So, we were reading a little bit of your bio and everything. So give us a little bit of background on that with your father, with your dad being an attorney as well, correct?
So my father, yes. So my father learned law in Cuba, and he was the president of the Law Society at the University of Havana in Cuba. And believe it or not, Castro, it's a 5-year program over there. It's sort of the European way of doing education. He was actually in the law school with my dad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think they were 3 years apart. I think my father was old. I'm not sure. And to hear his stories, to talk about how they all believed him. And so fast forward, he and a lot of people were exiled. My father came a little earlier. He was someone under the Batista regime.
Right.
And Batista was not a good guy either. And
Dictator.
they went to his father,
Yeah.
my grandfather, said, you better get your son out of here. Because he's talking. He was president of everything. He was very, very vocal, he spoke his mind. He comes here, and his English wasn't very good, to say the least. And he had to start law school all over again. So he ended up going to the University of Miami. And there was a friend of his from Cuba who had schools in Cuba. And the father sent her to University of Miami. And she ends up in the dorm with this woman named Mary Lou from Chicago, who ended up being my mother. Oh. So it was a Mary Lou Fitzgibbons, moves into the dorm from Chicago to this Cuban woman named Maria. And Maria says to my mother, I got a Cuban for you. You got to meet him. He's a great guy.
You got to have a Cuban.
I got to have a Cuban.
You got to see the Cuban guy.
And my mother says, a what?
Yeah. What is that?
A what?
Oh, what? I'm going to be introduced to what? Frijoles negros? What? And arroz maduro? Okay.
So she ended up meeting, and the rest is history. They fell in love, and they stayed together. But my family, the Fitzgibbons family from Chicago, disowned her because because she was marrying a foreigner. Is how they put it.
That's
apart.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it was really funny to watch. So I watched the two. I watched my father struggle with business and language and getting a foothold in this community. And
especially in that time.
that time.
I mean,
And then all the exiles came, the rest of his family, and
people really don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, when you tell that story, people don't understand that when Cubans came. I'm sure he came like in the 50-something. Or,
yes, exactly.
You know, there was nothing here. I mean, to come here to nothing, I mean, and build, I mean, my parents did the same thing, so I can only attest to that.
It was it's amazing when you think back that
Yeah.
you would have, like, you know, being, 27, 28, 30 years old, your whole life completely changes.
100%.
And you go to a community where Spanish isn't really spoken. There had to be a fight later on to make Spanish a real language here, where there were actually signs that said no Jews, no Cubans, no blacks, no dogs. I mean, think about that. I can't imagine what it was like to build a life. And we moved into a little house in Westchester, or as my father would say, Westchester.
All right, that's there.
So you guys,
That's our hook.
You guys are now neighbors.
No,
right?
well,
In the barrio.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were the only, Hispanics, Cubans on the block.
The Cubans took over Westchester.
I know.
They all, it was something that, because I can tell you, my parents were in the roads.
Oh,
and
wow.
and first, second, 8th, and 7th when they came from Cuba, and then a little bit to 12th by St. Peter and Paul, and then from there, my father said, "Hey, everybody's moving a little bit, down south a little bit more," and then my grandmother was like, "Oh, you're from the, they call it a campo, Cuba, so you all, like every other person, likes to be like a campo." So we moved to 84th, and now I look at 84th and and 11th, where my parents still live.
They stayed there,
they're
the
still
same
there
house
for
that you
40-some
grew up
years.
in?
Yes.
Wow.
Since 2 years old, I was there.
There was probably farmland on the other side of it.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Now you look at it, and everything is like, what are you
now they
talking
built
about?
out to the Everglades.
And past. But to your point,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy when everybody said, "What, Westchester?"
Yeah.
And that's where every Cuban,
Really started.
in that
Yeah.
Westchester area.
And so just on a very small scale, the discrimination that I felt is, people would sit under my bedroom window and say, "Spick, tell your father to send them all home," or something, stuff like that.
Wow.
And it was, but you know what? The one thing I learned from both of them was that you can't be bitter. They were never angry. They never carried a chip on their shoulder. They were always just very loving and forgiving. And so, that was kind of the beginning of my understanding vulnerabilities based on lack of knowledge of diversity and culture and language and art and all the things that come with different cultures. And so he built quite a life to finish his story. He became the first Cuban judge. He rebuilt so many lives here because he learned the language, he learned the law. So when the exiles came here and they need to rebuild their business or their corporations, he wouldn't charge them. And so he became really the unsung hero for the Cuban community in many ways. And to this day, not so many of them still living, but they remember, for instance, he recruited Perez Roda.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Fuste and a lot of these folks. And so anyway, I was very, very blessed to come up in that sort of environment. It wasn't privileged. It wasn't entitled. It wasn't bitter. It was learning open-mindedness, learning about communities, how to serve people, solve problems. And so I'm really a lucky girl.
That's great.
But that story shows you how important it is when you come here.
Yeah.
You put your roots down and you build the community. And look at what Miami is today.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, look at right side the windows.
Just look out here. You never would have imagined that.
Never.
How much of our immigrants or our exiles built this or helped build this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and again, paved a lot of ways for
Absolutely.
Paved a lot of ways. I mean, not because of anything, but they did. They paved a lot of ways for a lot of, people coming in here and making it easier for everybody, at ease to get into the language, as Kathy says, and, getting into your roots and being a little bit more at ease when you're coming from another country to come into Miami, at least. Kathy, I wanted to ask you as well, when you decided, okay, I'm going into law.
Yeah.
When was it? When did Kathy Fernandez Rundle wake up and say, I want to run for state attorney?
Oh.
What made that?
I don't think I ever had that day.
No. Or they said, okay, or when they told you, you're going to be the next state attorney, you're like, what?
Yeah, no, it's so funny. So I never even thought of myself as being a prosecutor way back when, but I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I used to watch Perry Mason and the Defenders and with my dad and Mission Impossible. Those were the things that he and I would do. And he would take me to the courtroom and he would introduce, there were only 2 women judges at that time, one in civil court and one in criminal court. And he took me to meet both. And he says, look, you don't see a lot of women in the profession, but you can do this too. So he was always exposing me to that kind of stuff. So I ended up going to the University of Cambridge in England, which doesn't make a Cuban father happy when his little girl goes away.
Oh, I'll bet.
No.
At all. No. I'm going
the University of Miami is really close to Westchester. I just want to point that out.
It's really close to my house right now. That's where mine has the only alternative to go. FIU or UM, I tell her.
FIU is even closer than Westchester.
I know.
But he wasn't around then.
He was not a happy puppy, but he let me go, and I went, and I studied. It was a great experience. I grew up a lot.
Sure, of course.
And then I come home during the summer, after I graduated, and he said, okay, so what are you going to do? I said, man, I just finished. I got a postgraduate degree, and I got my law degree. Can I just, breathe?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
No.
¿Qué es eso?
A good Cuban parent.
No.
Piensa de la vida.
And so I said, okay. He says, well, why don't you go to the prosecutor's office?
Okay.
So you can imagine. So I just said, what? He says, just go over there, check it out. It's a great place for you to go. So I said, what do they do? And he told me, I said, I don't want to be in the business of putting people in jail. That is not at all why I went to law school. And he says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to. I'm on my way to The Hague.
Yeah.
I want to fight human rights violations, that occur all over the world. And there are many of those kinds of human rights violations happening in very serious, inhumane ways to women and children, in particular in parts of the world. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do. And of course, my orientation was over there. It was all very international. And he said, if that's what you want to do, you go to the state attorney's office. So I went because I valued his opinion, and I fell in love with its mission. And I realized I don't have to travel 5,000 to 8,000 miles to go fight human rights violations when they're happening right here in my own backyard.
There's a lot over here.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
People are violating people's rights in their homes, in their cars, in their business, in their person all the time here. And so I realized that I could do a lot for my community, and fighting those kinds of cases and being an advocate for those kinds of vulnerable individuals. And so it was just a natural in the end.
So one of your initiatives is actually human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen your billboards about it, right?
Yes.
See something, say something.
Yes.
I've seen it. And I don't want to talk about specific cases because I know you have some high-profile one, or one high-profile that's sort of pending.
Andy.
I read the papers,
Okay.
in case you want to know. But that's a high-profile case.
Mm-hmm.
There's cases that the public really doesn't hear about, but it's your initiative, and you have a division focused on that. Maybe we talk about that a little bit.
Well, let me tell you, before she says that, I think that as a dad, that is, for me, the biggest thing right now going on with my daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter now 17.
Mm.
She goes to Lourdes with her friends, and she's in dance team. My daughter leaves at 6:45 in the morning to school and gets home every night at 9:30.
Yeah.
She dances in 2 teams. She dances for
Wow.
school, and she dances for competition. And thank God that we have all these devices now with, the Life 360, with this and with that, because I, to this day, don't know how my parents or any parents in the old days, because I tell her, you got to look out for everything.
Yeah.
Because didn't your father tell you what mine told me? I didn't care if you came home. I only cared if your sister came home.
Well, true. But before Kathy gets into that, my biggest thing was they caught one of those guys now in South Miami. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We're near where my daughter dances.
Yeah.
And I'm always so concerned with this whole thing of the human trafficking is horrible.
It's
horrible.
And it is out of control.
It's out of control.
And I think part of it is a lot of us just didn't realize what it is, what it means.
I agree with you.
Who are the victims and where are the victims, right?
A lot of people don't understand it.
And they think it's something foreign.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
I'll tell you, I was
You're absolutely
very wrong when I first started realizing that this was a real issue. And how it came to my attention was there's a national database. Then it's called Polaris, and it's there to advise Congress on how to spend Health and Human Services money, right? Where are the issues? Where's the money? Where's the need? And then they send the money there. So they came out with a study that said Florida is number 2 or number 3 in the number of victims of human trafficking.
It's crazy.
And Miami was number 1. So I immediately called my great team together and I said, did you read this? Where are these cases? And we had 3. So right then and there, something's wrong, right? We got to change our glasses, put different glasses on and figure out who are these victims, where are these victims, and what does it mean? And that began my journey. It was about 11 years ago. And what I discovered was it wasn't what I thought it was. I had this misconception. It was like the movies, Taken.
That's what I was going to call
Right,
that. I was
right.
the Liam Neeson situation.
Right.
We all want a Liam Neeson die.
Oh, he's great.
He's great. But that was my question
Yeah.
because everybody has that image.
I did too. Or, kids in container cargo ships, right?
Yes.
Coming from the Philippines
Right.
up through Central and South America and ending up in migrant camps picking tomatoes or whatever.
But we're a sexy city, and they use our sex appeal, and then they groom them to come here, right?
They do. And, and us being a destination, a great destination city, means that we're a destiny for all kinds of people, right? It means bad people as well as all the other good people that come to enjoy our community. The other bad people follow the money, and they bring their girls. That isn't all of them, but that's a huge number of them. And so, to your point, Andy, we are focused on all of those major events. That's where you saw the billboards, because we want people coming to this town. If you're coming for Formula One or the Grand Prix or a Super Bowl or Art Basel, or you're coming for a boat show.
The Ultra.
Yeah, the Ultra's a big one.
That's
too,
what I'm saying, yeah.
If you're coming for any of those that happen almost every other month in our community, which is a good thing. We love that. But it's also drawing a lot of people. So we want everybody outside the community to know it doesn't happen in our backyard. And if you do, you'll get caught. And the Grand Prix, I think we do operations before a major event, meaning undercover operations. We go online, helps a lot. A lot of the transactions of luring young girls, it's mostly young girls. 90% of our victims are female. 40% of them are under the age of 18.
That's crazy.
14 through 18. And then the other population is 18 to 24. So if you think about it, it's 14 to 24, right? So it's children and youth. And they get wrapped up into this ugly money-making machine where they get drugged, beaten, and raped.
And I'm thinking, look at the things she's saying. She's saying formula. You're talking about the expensive, sports, the people with money that come here. I'm thinking that the sickles are these, even some of the most wealthiest people are really the sickles with this thing in their mind.
Well, okay, so I want, if I don't want to misspeak on that.
No.
It's the attraction of an event.
Right.
So they know that the bad guys know, and the bad guys aren't necessarily the ones coming here to enjoy the event, right? It's the bad guys that are capitalizing on the good guys who are spending money here.
And what's going on in that town.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the girls, a lot of the girls are just trapped. They can't do anything about it because we're a destination circle. So we go from Las Vegas to Orlando to here
And that's interesting to me because we've had some conversations about that. Like the girls are trapped. Because some people say, "How are you trapped?"
Yeah.
Like, how are you trapped? But then when you hear these stories of how these girls have been trapped, that they can't get out.
Which is exactly what the intention is, right?
Right.
So they lure them in a whole bunch of different ways, but essentially they strip them of their dignity. They take away all their ID, passport, driver's license. They isolate them. They don't have cell phones. The only cell phones you can have are the pimps. And then they sell you, and you can't get out of the car, and you can't get out of the hotel room, and you're trapped. And you would be so surprised that when we rescue some of these girls, and we say, look, we know what you're going through. They say, look, I know he's a bad guy, but he's my bad guy. And he's the only one that's feeding me, clothing me, sheltering me, and protecting me from the other men on the street. So it's this incredibly deep cycle of absolute manipulation, isolation. But we
Psychology.
psychology.
I mean, they really, brainwash like a cult.
It is like a cult. But the good news is we're aware now.
Yeah.
So we can tell you that a lot. I tell everybody this: it isn't somebody else's child. They're our children. They're in our parks.
100%. Yeah.
They're in our schools. They're in our child welfare system, foster care system. And so we really need to take ownership of this, and we have. And as a community, I can tell you we have the only human trafficking center that I'm aware of in the country. We're a model. They come from all over the world, really, but primarily the United States to study how do we do it, how do we have a task force, how do we approach this. We have now a command staff of 40 different law enforcement.
Yeah.
Police, HSI, Homeland, FBI, Secret Service that download all of our messages. And last but not least, you know what really helps us? That phone.
Yeah. That's what I was telling you.
The phone is a wealth of information and evidence. So when she's saying, no, he didn't force me, no. I read the text, said, really, did you see what you said to him and he said to you? And so we use that a lot, number one. Number two, we can follow them, right? We have cell site information all the time. Number three, we will often use technology to lure through undercover operations, to lure people to meet, Nancy at such and such a hotel and such and such a place. And so all of the condo owners, a lot of the hotel and restaurant industry, I meet with them all the time. Everyone's cooperating. We now have information almost in every stall at Miami International Airport, at least the women's stalls. I haven't been in the men's stalls. But, it's keeping that.
Be happy. They're awful, but go ahead. But I tell you, that's great to know. I mean, and I think our listeners and everybody, I mean, that's been a very hot topic going on now here in Miami. Especially like I tell you, me being a father of a teenage girl and all the dads and everybody, it's concerning. Yeah. It's very concerning.
Oh, it's definitely concerning. As a property owner, it's concerning.
As a property owner as well, in all these places, in the restaurants and every place else. I mean, the first thing I always tell my daughter anywhere she goes is like, whatever you have in your hand, don't let it go. And if you do, throw it away and get a new. I mean, this is crazy. It's not the years that we lived in Westchester. No. Those are gone. Those days of just playing and riding bike to a neighbor. That doesn't exist anymore.
It's interesting though, Manny, that you should point that out because there are different groups of vulnerabilities, right? So girls that go to clubs and get a drink and then are asked to dance or take their drink to the ladies' room. We've seen this a lot. They go into their stall and they come back and they think they're picking up their drink. And oftentimes what happens is they're drugged. They don't realize it. They end up in a hotel room or someone's apartment. But where this is really going is that person's taking pictures.
Wow.
And so that's one method of control and manipulation where it almost makes it impossible for her to get out of that, to tell anybody, because he's going, you tell anybody, you do anything, I'm going to send this to your fill in the blank, your mom, your dad, your neighbors, your employers. And so it's really, there's so many different ways to find yourself hurt. So, I think that these shows that you're doing where you can get the word, I don't know who your audience is.
Yeah.
Is your audience our age or
everything? We have everything. We have young. We have a diverse. Now that we have Andy on the show, we have some senior citizens. So we're doing good.
Thank you. Can I get a day in Miami cane when I get up and walk out, please?
I'll give it to you. Very colorful.
Can I get one of those electric wheelchairs?
But Kathy, that's one of the reasons why we like we talked earlier. This is one of the reasons why we even did the podcast because we wanted to. We love to get that information and like people like you, our mayors and everything that don't have the time. The news doesn't cover what they have to cover. So they'll put on X amount of stories during the day, but this is what we like to do. We like sit down, believe it or not, you'll have people that sit down and listen to this. Yeah. I always say there's some people that say they might find this boring. But then you have the other people that say, I love that. I learned something today that I didn't know. And that's the beauty of the podcast.
My niece is 17. She watches this podcast.
Yeah.
Really?
In New York.
Yeah. There you go.
Really?
Lisette doesn't miss one ever.
That's wonderful, because then I thank you, because what you're doing is you're taking information to the people, and knowledge is power. And as long as you do that, that's just wonderful.
Well, and we like to show that our politicians and our elected officials are human, and they're real people. They have a life. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of our viewers always, ask, okay, so when you do this job, there has to be. Was there ever a time, or was there a case that, I know you see so many, but is there one that you can talk about or say that really affected you, that said, wow, that one really took a toll on me?
Yeah.
There
are a couple, actually. So there was one that troubled me for a long time, and I wondered if the decision we had made was a good one. And it involved a young boy who was at a high school band. And he was a good boy. He was with the band, and another guy came into the gym and hurt the girls and made one of the girls take her clothes off, and he raped her. And the leader of the band got so angry that he went outside to chase him, and he got in his car, his father's car. It was because it was band practice after school, and he remembered that there was a gun under the front seat. And so it's raining, and he's driving, and he's trying to find this person that just hurt all these people in the gym. And he reaches under the front seat and pulls out the gun and shoots and kills him. And so I just remember thinking, wow, it was just, there was so much heartbreak in all that.
100%.
Right? It was just,
can't even imagine.
It was just heartbreaking. So what was the right sentence for that boy with the gun, who'd been a band leader, who'd done everything right? So that haunted me for a while, whether we did the right thing, were the number of years the right thing, was it too long? So that haunted me for a while, because it was early on in my career, and I was just trying to learn what balance, and how do you show some mercy,
right,
but at the same time make sure nobody else gets hurt by that person.
Correct, yeah.
And those are tough decisions. You have to wish you had a crystal ball.
I mean, he's trying to do the right, I guess the right thing, but then he did the wrong thing.
Right, you can't take a gun out and shoot somebody.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
But the other one that still haunts me, and it's been ongoing for years, it was the Angel case. So I call it the Angel case. You remember this case?
I do.
So for the listening audience, there was a Colombian woman. She had one child, a daughter. And so she left Colombia, and she wanted the best for her one child. Her name was Angel. Okay. And she brought her here to the United States. She lived in a little garage apartment in Coral Gables. They have those in the backyards. And so that her daughter could get educated in the United States of America. She went to school. She was a straight-A student. It was graduation day. And she and her boyfriend, very nice young man, they both graduated. They said, well, let's go for a walk on the beach. So they went for a walk on the beach. They went over to Miami Beach, went across the causeway, and they're just walking down the beach to, I can see I'm getting emotional about it.
Yeah.
Two young kids, 18 years old, just holding hands, not bothering anybody. And there were 6 horrible men that came from Orlando. It's a whole other story. They came in a van, and they decided whoever walked by them next was going to be their victims. Took the 2 young kids, threw them in the van, and just took off back to Orlando. I think they went up I-95. I'm not going to say because it's horrific. They just raped and tortured her and did everything inhumane that you could think of to this little girl. And the boyfriend was trying to save her and but 6 guys in a van, and he was stabbed 27 times, I think it was, and trying to protect her. He couldn't. And in the end, they stopped the van, opened the back doors, and they threw her on the ground. And the worst guy gets out, takes the gun, and she's literally found, begging for her life, please don't kill me, please don't kill me. And she's found in that position, dead. They go on further up 995. They think the boyfriend's dead. They throw him out. He lives. Well, if you can think about how that mother, I would meet with her so many times, and I could see she felt responsible. Had she not brought her daughter here, to the United States. This would never have happened to her daughter. And so to this day, so we had to try 6 offenders, and she had to live through all that. She had to listen to all that. And I still sometimes wake up thinking about that mother and that little girl. And the boy is not to say he was a great witness in the end, but still his life is forever changed. So those are the kinds of things that I sometimes deal with that do haunt me. But for the most part, I try not to think about them, as do the lawyers. I mean, I'm just one of 350 lawyers.
Your whole staff. Yeah.
The whole staff.
Yes, of course.
And you know who else, Manny? And Andy, you've probably met some of them. They're victim witness counselors. And so we have 150 of them, because our philosophy is, if you've been a victim of a crime, we need to make sure the system doesn't victimize you more. Because some people don't understand the court system. A lot of people don't understand the court system, right?
I don't understand.
Do you understand it?
We watched Perry Mason.
Yeah, it's not Perry Mason.
No, if only it were that simple, right?
Oh, yeah, it's Matlock now is on TV. Yeah, that's it.
That's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. But
to finish the story, so, what we've tried to do is we tried to match therapists with the type of crime, because every crime is not the same. The victimology and the symptomology of a sex crimes victim, or you lose your daughter or niece in a car accident, that's different victimology.
Right.
If you're a victim of domestic violence, that's completely different. And so you try to match the therapist and the victim witness counselor with that type of crime so they can hold their hands. But they're the unsung heroes, because they absorb all that. Can you imagine?
To be a counselor like that and wake up in the morning and you have to sit down with those victims and listen to the story.
To go to work?
I don't know. I mean, go over there and listen to that story. And you go to, Kathy's point, go back home. If you have your own family and then you're thinking about what just happened and are we seeing more people, like graduating and studying these positions and these professions, Kathy? I mean, or do we see in that point, do we see a lack of attorneys?
Yeah.
See what's going on with that? Are we in need of more?
You have a shortfall, right?
Okay, so you opened the door.
Well, because you
I'm glad you did.
Well, because you're talking about
Thank you.
the what these people go through. I mean, that's tough. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, how is that going? Is there people studying for this profession? I mean, I wouldn't, but I mean, I'm saying, is there people doing it? Is there people wanting to do it?
So there are a couple things going on, and there's a very complicated question, but it's a very simple answer. So a lot of public lawyers, the lawyers that work in the state attorney's office, work for the public. They serve this community. And so they've been through all this training. They've been through law school. Law school is a business. You pay a lot of money to get those degrees.
Yes, you do.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in many, many cases. So now you want to go work for the public, but you got to live where you're working. The public that you serve is where you have to live. And so the state of Florida doesn't really recognize the value of, say, prosecutors, because they see them as state employees and they pay $68,000 to someone that has so much student debt, can make so much more money. Every major law firm, Andy knows, has moved here. And I'm happy for Miami, right? Because that means we're bustling. There's business. More business means more lawyers, and more building means more lawyers. But you know what? If we're going to be a safe city and not be Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, which is why a lot of them are coming here.
We need more of those public defenders.
We need more of those warriors for the community.
Well, prosecutors, defenders, all of them, everything in the public.
Yeah, you're right. And we see ourselves as, in a way, you're right. We defend. Yeah. We protect
I'm a
our
defender,
community.
but you the prosecutors defend the city.
Yeah.
Against any of these crimes. So how can we fix that? How do we get all these people up and coming and
You have an initiative.
I do.
Now you're going to tell us about it.
I am. So,
this was not rehearsed.
Just so you know, so we have been underpaid for quite a long time, and since COVID, overworked, because we're now just getting to a lot of those cases. In addition to that, because we became the most expensive city in America to live in,
right.
A lot of them can't live here, so they don't work for us. So that you have that confluence of all those influences happening at the same time. So that's why we are now at a 32% vacancy rate. So if you could just think about that. So we'll just say 300 lawyers, 100 lawyers less. How do 200 lawyers handle increased volume on less money in a very expensive city? And why would you do that?
So how do we fix it?
So what we have to do is we have to tell our Speaker of the House, who's a great guy, Danny Perez.
Yes.
It's not just him. It's been decades of neglect that they're trying to make up for. Danny's a great guy. He loves his community. But, you have the rest of Florida. So let me just tell you this. So the thing is we need increased salaries, but more importantly, we need a cost of area differential. So a prosecutor working here across the street or in Andy's building here is making exactly the same amount of money, starting salary, as they do in Alachua County or Polk County. And I love those counties. I mean, they're great counties, but they don't cost nearly what it costs to live here.
At all.
So there should be a cost of area differential. If you're going to do this work in this county and it costs more money for you to do that work in that county, you should be compensated. If you do it in another county and it doesn't cost as much, you don't get compensated. Yeah. And that's a model the federal government has used for years. So I've been really on that mission for the last couple of years. I've been very blessed because all the elected officials get that it's really important. This is a business issue, right? All the business community, the Chamber of Commerce, the Beacon Council, they're all writing resolutions and letters for us, and so hopefully we'll make some headway. But
didn't we talk? We spoke a little about this with Carlos when we did the podcast with Carlos Migo.
We did,
and we talked about maybe even like housing, in the sense like like more affordable in the area. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that also supplement some of the new
I know the county is trying to find ways to help Kathy deal with the cost of housing and have workforce housing that can assist.
I mean, it just makes sense.
I know it comes up in almost any new development.
Yeah.
You may not know it, but the hospital system is considering building workforce housing on campus.
I'm very familiar. Carlos actually said to me, I want to reach out to you and see if we can do it together.
I think that'd be great.
Nurses and
but terrific.
Yeah, it would be great. He hasn't called me back, but no, I'm just kidding, Carlos.
Well, he's waiting on Andy.
Let's go downstairs. I have a key to the office.
He's waiting on Andy.
No, but you know what? So we do. I will say the developers as an industry have been pretty nice to us. I met with the local HUD for the local HUD here. And he had me meet with all the developers, and I met a big meeting, and they were great. And I explained to them, you're building high-end stuff. No one's going to come here if we become Paradise Lost again. We were once designated Paradise Lost.
True.
So if you want to keep selling these, multi-million-dollar units, you need to provide for the workforce, the people that will keep your community safe. And they get it. It's just they're trying, but they can't build fast enough. And the credits don't always work. There are these funny formulas, you must know.
Costs of construction are going up.
Yeah.
Interest rates are going up too high. There really needs to be more public-private partnership to make it work for you.
Yes, that's right.
But I think it works out for people for the hospitals and for the state attorney's office. I think that those are the people that should be qualified for that type of workforce, especially here. With cost of living in Miami, it's crazy. It is crazy. I love it, but it's crazy.
And the beauty of that is that I think it's public land. Belongs to the Public Health Trust. And we're talking about the same property. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that saves a lot to the developer, right?
Well, he's a developer. Not on the spot, but
it saves a lot. And the workforce housing is built under a different model once the county has the land. And so it does work out pretty well.
So we have to work on that together.
Yeah. So we want to wrap up, and we just want to say, Kathy, I like to ask these questions, and I like to ask these questions to someone up here. Do you have time to unwind? Do you have time to say, wait, wow, let me just take a breather? Do you have, we love to tell all our listeners and everything, we always ask them, do you have, little favorite little spots that you say, I'm in the mood to have a little meal from this little place today.
Mm-hmm.
We always tell them, you have like 3 little spots that your go-to little places that you say, I want a good little Cuban sandwich. I want a good home-cooked meal today. I want to go here. Any little shout-outs out there that you...
I do. But I have to say my sweet spot is really my grandchildren.
Okay.
So tonight,
yes,
I'm going to have a Shabbat dinner with my grandson. I just made a date with him.
Okay.
So he's coming over, and then we watch movies, we do popcorn, and we have a lot of fun. And that to me is and we watch silly movies.
Yeah.
Movies I don't remember since I was a child.
Well, those are the best ones.
They're the best movies.
Yeah, they're the best ones. Go watch Airplane. That's the best one.
That is a funny one.
Airplane's such a great one.
Would a 9-year-old get that? I don't know.
No, don't watch Airplane. No, let's get that one back. Don't watch Airplane then.
Annie, when you were a 9-year-old, you got that.
I don't know. I think they took me to go see Saturday Night Fever. But anyway, what about restaurants? Shout out some restaurants out there that they're worthy of Katherine Fernandez Rundle.
Manny always asks for 3.
Okay, so it depends.
That's an Eddie question, but he's not here today. But we'll ask.
So one of my favorite places after the gym. So they vary in what it is, right?
Yes.
So after the gym on Saturday and Sunday mornings, we work out for a couple hours, and I treat myself to croqueta de bacalao at Sergio's.
Okay.
So Sergio's is kind of near where we work out.
Yeah. Okay.
And my grandchildren, if they go with us, they love it because it has the robot.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite places. If it's sort of like another place we go would be Roasters and Toasters.
Okay.
If we're in for deli food after the gym, you can see we eat a lot after the gym.
Yes.
And then for evenings, Abrachi is always a wonderful place, a classic.
It is.
I love Old Lisbon. Right? I just love the flavor of their food and their great service. Those are some.
Those are great shout-outs.
I think I'm going
to
Mika Saturday night. Mika?
You're going to Mika's. Well,
Mika's.
Right? So you'll be right across my office.
Oh, where is your office?
Yes, we're right there in Coral Gables. But we have some great restaurants here too, Kathy, in the Riverland.
I heard there was a new one.
Elia?
I've
I'm
not
going
been.
tonight.
Somebody, one of my secretaries, so I wanted to go somewhere special last week.
Delicious Italian.
Have you been to Claus yet?
Not yet.
I did.
It's upstairs rooftop.
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful? Yes, it is a little. But that's why I ordered just.
I know. I mean, it's great, but it's,
No, but I ordered scrambled eggs. So just 2 scrambled eggs for $10, okay?
We ordered one of those claws, and when I saw that bill,
I was
like, I still think to this day, I mean, whatever. For me, one of the best claws that you can get really is no, not well. I like Joe's, obviously.
Love Joe's,
but if you're gonna
Joe's is a classic.
A good king claw, Alaskan king claw for me is right there in
where
now the place now in Brickell.
Where in Brickell?
True Lux.
True Fish.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. True Lux.
True Lux. I think they have one of the best ones.
Well, when you talk about the Grove, when you talk about Miami Beach, I happen to think the 2 best obviously is Joe's.
Yes.
Awesome.
And
then, do you know George Santorino's? Oh, you got to get to know George.
Okay.
Giorgio
at
Santorini.
He runs the Asian restaurant downstairs, Tanuki.
He does?
Yeah.
I love that man.
Okay, so here I'm gonna put you on the spot again.
He's great. Giorgio's great.
You need to take your tenant, our state attorney, please, to Tanuki. So
our state attorney has been to.
I have been to.
She hasn't been to Elia.
I haven't been to Elia.
He
on
air. He tries to embarrass me that I owe everybody dinner at Elia. So
I got him with Carlos to get another spot.
We did.
Another parking spot.
Carlos.
Yeah.
No, Carlos got a Carlos. Carlos and Tony.
What did they get?
Tony Abello is dinner at Elia, and so your lunch at Elia.
You got to take her. You got to her and a couple of the staff.
Manny's giving me his credit card.
And nice. I wonder why Giorgio hasn't told me that. He's so funny. I love him. He's just the best.
Well, Kathy, I just want to tell you thank you so much, and I really want to let you know that please let us know whenever you want us to come and you want to use this platform of A Day in Miami.
Thank you.
To really say anything that you feel that is of importance to this whole community, because this is what A Day in Miami is all about.
Thank
we
you.
want to bring A Day in Miami so people can listen to that and see that our state attorney is a beautiful human being, and she's doing a great job. And for all the years of your service, at least me and everything, we thank you.
We
thank
do
you,
thank you.
thank you, thank you,
because
Manny.
it takes a lot.
And thank you both, Andy. Thank you. And I just want to say that I think that anybody who takes the time out like you two do to get important messages out, I'm not saying that mine is important, but any message that helps our community understand something, be informed, is wonderful. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned.